Welcome to today's video, where we explore one of the most haunting yet fascinating chapters in American history. Across the United States, there are ghost towns and abandoned neighborhoods that echo with stories of once thriving communities, now left in silence. Among them, Detroit stands as perhaps the most striking example, symbolizing both industrial collapse and urban decay. Once a proud hub of automotive innovation and economic power, Detroit's empty factories and deserted streets reveal a sobering reality. Join us as we uncover the rise and fall of these forgotten places. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Number 10. Rise of Detroit. Detroit once stood as the proud capital of American industry, particularly in the automobile sector. Known as the Motor City, it was home to giants like Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, which fueled both the local economy and the American dream. At its peak, Detroit attracted thousands of workers from across the country and immigrants from abroad, all searching for stable jobs and the promise of prosperity. The booming auto industry created a middle-class lifestyle that included home ownership, cars, and suburban growth. In the mid-20th century, Detroit was among the richest cities in the United States, symbolizing progress and innovation. Cultural life also flourished, with music, art, and architecture reflecting the city's wealth and diversity. Motown, an iconic music movement, was born here, adding to Detroit's national significance. The rise of Detroit was not just industrial, it was also social and cultural. The city represented the ideal of industrial America, where hard work and factories could provide security for families. Detroit's initial success laid the foundation for what seemed like a never-ending prosperity, making its later decline even more striking and tragic in comparison. Number 9. Economic decline. The downfall of Detroit's economy began gradually but soon became unavoidable. The heavy reliance on the automobile industry meant that any shifts in global markets, automation, or outsourcing had a devastating impact on the city. By the late 20th century, many factories either reduced production or closed altogether, leaving thousands jobless. As global competition increased, American automakers lost ground to foreign companies producing more fuel-efficient and affordable cars. Technological changes also meant fewer workers were needed, creating large-scale layoffs. The collapse of such a dominant industry struck the city's foundation, and without diversification, Detroit's economy could not withstand the blow. The shrinking tax base left public services underfunded, contributing to crumbling infrastructure and underperforming schools. Poverty grew, and the once thriving city began to struggle with widespread financial challenges. Eventually, Detroit became one of the few major U.S. cities to declare bankruptcy, a stark symbol of its collapse. The economic decline reshaped the city's identity from a hub of opportunity to one of hardship. What was once the land of plenty now became an example of how overdependence on one industry can turn prosperity into crisis when global shifts occur. Number 8. Population exodus. The economic downturn triggered a massive outflow of people from Detroit. At its peak in the 1950s, the city's population was nearly 2 million, but by the early 21st century, it had dropped to under 700,000. Families who had once enjoyed the benefits of stable factory jobs fled in search of better opportunities elsewhere. Suburbanization also accelerated this shift, as those who could afford to move left for safer, more prosperous areas outside the city limits. The departure was not just about jobs, but also about escaping rising crime, failing schools, and deteriorating infrastructure. This exodus left behind empty homes, abandoned neighborhoods, and a weakened sense of community. Each person leaving took with them not only financial support for the city, but also cultural and social vitality. The population loss hollowed out Detroit, creating entire districts with few residents and little activity. These vacant areas quickly became symbols of abandonment. The decline in population also meant a shrinking tax base, which worsened city services and infrastructure, making the situation even more dire. The exodus turned Detroit into a shadow of its former self, with vast spaces emptied of the life they once held. Number 7. Abandoned homes. One of the most visible consequences of Detroit's decline has been the overwhelming number of abandoned homes. Streets once filled with families, children, and community life became littered with empty houses, many left to decay. Some were stripped of valuable materials like copper wiring and wood, while others simply crumbled with time. Vacant homes attracted vandalism, arson, and illegal activities, further destabilizing neighborhoods. These properties often became dangerous, not only physically but also socially, as they represented neglect and loss. The number of abandoned homes in Detroit reached tens of thousands, with entire blocks sometimes standing empty. This physical decline reflected the larger collapse of the city's identity. Homes are often the backbone of communities, and when they disappear, so does the social fabric. Generational wealth tied to property ownership vanished, leaving families without roots or assets. The abandoned houses became haunting reminders of what the city once was and how quickly prosperity can erode. Despite efforts by local organizations and city initiatives to demolish or rehabilitate these properties, the sheer scale of abandonment remains one of Detroit's most defining features of its urban decay. Number 6. Urban blight. Urban blight in Detroit is perhaps the most recognizable sign of its struggles. The once bustling cityscape became marked by empty factories, broken infrastructure, and declining public spaces. Streets that were alive with businesses turned into corridors of shuttered shops and crumbling facades. The deterioration wasn't just cosmetic. It represented the collapse of an entire system of support and prosperity. Schools closed, libraries were abandoned, and parks became overgrown, leaving residents with fewer resources and a sense of despair. The image of urban blight in Detroit is powerful. Skyscrapers without tenants, factories filled with silence, and neighborhoods overtaken by nature. It became symbolic of the cost of neglect and economic collapse in an industrial city. Urban blight also discouraged investment, as potential businesses avoided areas that seemed beyond repair. For those still living in Detroit, this environment created psychological burdens, where their surroundings constantly reminded them of decline. The blight turned into a cycle, with neglect fueling more abandonment. Despite small areas of renewal, the scars of blight remain etched into the city's landscape, a reminder of how quickly prosperity can transform into ruin when industries collapse. Number 5. Crime surge. With economic decline and abandoned spaces came a sharp increase in crime. The shrinking population and lack of opportunity created an environment where lawlessness could thrive. Abandoned buildings became hideouts for illegal activity, while poverty drove some residents toward crime for survival. Detroit gained a reputation as one of the most dangerous cities in America, with high rates of violent crime and theft. The weakened police force, underfunded due to the city's financial crisis, struggled to maintain control. Residents lived in fear, and businesses avoided investing in an area perceived as unsafe. The crime surge further fueled the exodus of families who wanted safer environments for their children. This created a vicious cycle. As more people left, neighborhoods became emptier, which in turn made them more vulnerable to criminal activity. The crime wave eroded trust within communities, weakening social bonds and making recovery even harder. While many hardworking citizens remained, their lives were overshadowed by the stigma of high crime rates. The rise in crime became a defining feature of Detroit's decline, intensifying the perception of a city overwhelmed by collapse and instability. Number 4. Lost communities. As Detroit declined, communities that once thrived disappeared. Neighborhoods that were filled with strong social bonds and local traditions dissolved as people moved away. Churches, schools, and small businesses, cornerstones of local life, closed down or relocated, leaving behind shells of what they once were. The disappearance of these institutions meant that generations of shared culture and connection were suddenly broken. Residents who remained found themselves in fragmented communities, with fewer neighbors and little support. Detroit was once known for its vibrant ethnic enclaves, where immigrant families built strong identities and cultural landmarks. Over time, these were weakened by disinvestment and neglect. The sense of belonging and pride in one's neighborhood, once a defining characteristic of the city, became increasingly rare. Social isolation grew, and the psychological impact of living in half-empty neighborhoods took a toll on individuals and families. Lost communities represent more than physical departure. They signify the breaking of human connections and traditions that define a city's heart. In Detroit, the loss of these communities has been one of the most devastating aspects of its decline, leaving behind memories but little tangible continuity. Number 3. Symbol of collapse. Detroit eventually became the poster city for industrial collapse in America. Once a proud example of manufacturing strength, it transformed into a global symbol of economic failure. Images of abandoned factories, empty neighborhoods, and overgrown streets were broadcast worldwide, shaping Detroit's reputation. The bankruptcy in 2013 further cemented this symbolism, as no other major U.S. city had ever experienced financial collapse on such a scale. Detroit became a cautionary tale for other cities reliant on a single industry, showing the dangers of lack of diversification and poor economic planning. Beyond economics, Detroit symbolized how quickly prosperity can fade if structural changes are ignored. For many outsiders, the city came to represent the darker side of industrial capitalism, the rise and fall tied to markets beyond local control. The symbol of collapse also carried stigma for its residents, who often felt misrepresented by a narrative that ignored their resilience. Still, Detroit's image as a collapsed industrial city remains one of the most powerful reminders of how once great centers of innovation can quickly become shadows of their former selves. Number 2. Ghost Town Effect. Entire districts of Detroit now resemble ghost towns, where silence and emptiness dominate. Streets are lined with boarded-up homes, factories sit idle, and weeds reclaim sidewalks once filled with life. This ghost town effect emerged because of the massive population loss and abandonment. Unlike smaller rural ghost towns that faded gradually, Detroit's decline happened in a major urban setting, making the emptiness even more striking. Visitors often describe the eerie quietness, where once busy areas feel frozen in time. The ghost town effect also draws urban explorers, photographers, and documentarians who see Detroit as a living museum of decay. However, for the remaining residents, this emptiness is not art. It is a daily reality of living in half-abandoned neighborhoods. The ghost town effect reflects not only physical emptiness, but also the absence of community and opportunity. It serves as a constant reminder of the city's past prosperity compared to its present struggles. Detroit's ghost town landscape stands as one of the most haunting examples of urban decline in modern America. Number 1. Hope of renewal. Despite its decline, Detroit is not without hope. In recent years, revitalization efforts have taken root, bringing signs of renewal. Local entrepreneurs, community groups, and outside investors are working to restore parts of the city. Downtown areas have seen redevelopment, with new businesses, art scenes, and cultural events breathing life back into the city. Abandoned buildings are being transformed into housing, offices, or creative spaces. The city's resilience lies in its people, many of whom continue to fight for its rebirth despite challenges. Detroit's story is increasingly being reframed as one of survival and reinvention, not just collapse. Green projects, technology startups, and grassroots initiatives are helping diversify the economy, reducing dependence on the auto industry. The hope of renewal does not erase the scars of the past, but it suggests that cities can recover even from near-total collapse. Detroit now serves as both a warning and a source of inspiration. While unchecked decline can devastate, determination and innovation can pave the way for revival. The city stands as a testament to human resilience in the face of urban decay. Thank you for watching this journey through ghost towns and abandoned neighborhoods in America, with Detroit standing at the heart of this powerful narrative. These forgotten spaces serve as reminders of ambition, struggle, and resilience, showing us how industries and cities can rise and fall over time. If you found this video insightful, share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. Stay connected as we bring more fascinating explorations of history and society. Once again, thank you, and remember to subscribe for upcoming content.